Right now, while you're listening to this, there is one specific cell in your gut that is quietly dying. And every time one of those cells dies and isn't replaced, your skin gets a little thinner, your joints get a little stiffer, and the inflammation circulating in your blood goes up another notch. After 60, you lose those cells almost twice as fast as you can rebuild them. By the time you notice the symptoms, the bloating, the fatigue, the joints that hurt for no obvious reason, the foggy thinking that wasn't there a few years ago, most of the damage has already happened. And the most frustrating part? Your last physical didn't even look for it. I'm Dr. Richard James, and I've spent over 25 years helping adults over 60 reverse problems most doctors say are just part of getting older. In the next 18 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly which cell in your gut is collapsing. The May 2026 Mount Sinai finding that finally explains why, and the 4-step protocol I now give every patient who walks into my office over the age of 60. Before we go any further, I need you to understand something about your body after 60 that changes this entire conversation. Your gut lining replaces itself every 4 to 5 days. Every 4 to 5 days. That makes it the fastest renewing organ in your body when it's working. But after 60, that renewal slows down. Not by a small margin, by roughly 40%, according to data published in Cell Reports in 2021. And the thing slowing it down is something almost nobody is testing for. This isn't just about digestion. The same process driving your bloating after dinner is the process speeding up the wear on your heart valves, the inflammation in your knees, and the fog in your thinking. One cellular collapse, a dozen downstream symptoms. And the most frustrating part, your last physical didn't even test for it. There's a reason for that, and it's going to surprise you. In a moment, I'll give you the exact 4-step protocol I now share with every patient over 60. But before I do, you need to understand what's actually happening, because the protocol only makes sense once you see the mechanism. Stay with me here, because what I'm about to show you reframes everything you've been told about why your body ages the way it does. Your gut lining is built and maintained by a small army of cells called intestinal stem cells. Think of them as stonemasons. Every 4 to 5 days, they rebuild the wall that separates the inside of your gut from the rest of your body. When they're working at full speed, that wall is airtight. Nothing crosses it that shouldn't. After 60, you start losing stonemasons faster than you can train new ones. The wall stops being fully rebuilt. Cracks open up between the cells. And the stuff that was supposed to stay on the inside of that wall? Bacterial fragments, undigested food proteins, toxins from your own digestive process, starts leaking through into the bloodstream. Marie was a 68-year-old retired postmaster. She came to me because she felt tired all the time, even after sleeping 9 hours. She had bloating after almost every meal, no matter how plain she ate. Her thinking felt slower than it had at 55. Her primary care doctor had run a complete panel: CBC, lipids, A1C, basic metabolic. Everything was normal. Her doctor told her it was just age. It wasn't. Picture a representative profile like Marie's. Maybe you know someone like her. Maybe she sounds a little like you. The labs look clean, the complaints are real, and the gap between those two things is exactly where this video is going to live. So what was actually happening inside Marie's gut? Her intestinal stem cell pool was depleted. Her gut wall was thinning. Bacterial fragments were leaking into her bloodstream at low levels, day after day, for years. Her immune system saw those fragments, and it launched a slow, quiet, chronic inflammatory response that her standard labs couldn't see because nobody was measuring the right markers. That's not bad luck. That's not just age. That's a specific cellular process that researchers can now actually measure, just not on a panel your primary care doctor is going to order tomorrow. So why hasn't your doctor mentioned this? Because the test for it isn't on the standard senior workup yet. The marker exists in research labs. It just hasn't crossed over into routine care. Hold on to that question because I'm going to come back to it. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because in May of 2026, a team at Mount Sinai figured out exactly what is killing the stonemasons. And it's not what anyone expected. In May of 2026, researchers at Mount Sinai's Icahn School of Medicine published a finding in the journal Cell Stem Cell that I think will eventually change how we talk about senior health. They identified a single bacterial species in the gut, Akkermansia muciniphila, as the missing piece of this entire puzzle. Here's the strange thing about Akkermansia. It eats mucin. Mucin is the protective gel that lines the inside of your gut, separating your stem cells from the trillions of bacteria you're carrying. You would think a mucin-eating bacterium would damage your gut wall. Instead, it does the opposite. By trimming the old, thickened mucin layer, Akkermansia signals your body to make more, fresher mucin. It's a gardener, not a thief. It prunes the old growth so the new growth has room. When Akkermansia is doing its job, your mucin layer stays thick, springy, and well-organized. Exactly the environment your intestinal stem cells need to keep dividing. After 60, your Akkermansia population can drop by as much as 80%, according to data summarized in a 2022 review in Nature Reviews Gastroenterology and Hepatology. The signal stops. The garden goes untended, the mucin layer thins, and the cells directly underneath that mucin, your intestinal stem cells, lose the protective microenvironment they need to keep dividing. That is the upstream switch. That is what the Mount Sinai team found. One species of bacterium, declining over decades, quietly removing the conditions your stem cells need to do their job. And once those stem cells stop dividing at full speed, the entire downstream cascade I just walked you through begins. What's especially striking about the Mount Sinai paper is what happened when they restored Akkermansia in their experimental model. Stem cell division didn't just slow its decline, it bounced back. The mucin layer rebuilt itself. The gut wall sealed. The downstream inflammatory markers came down in measurable amounts within weeks. The collapse, in other words, is not permanent. The wall can be rebuilt. The stonemasons can be put back to work. This is the part that frustrates me the most as a doctor. Because the test for this, a simple stool assay that measures Akkermansia abundance, has existed in research labs for over a decade. It just hasn't crossed over into primary care. There's no standard insurance code for it. Your annual physical doesn't include it. And that lag between what the research already knows and what your primary care doctor is allowed to order is costing people years of their health span. Think about that for a second. The science is settled enough to publish in Cell Stem Cell. The intervention is cheap, the downstream consequences are massive, and the bottleneck is paperwork. Now this next part is the one that should genuinely concern you. Because what happens when that wall thins isn't just digestive, it's systemic. Stay with me, because the next few minutes connect this one bacterial collapse to almost every other complaint you've had since you turned 60. Here's the part that ties everything together. When your gut wall thins, a specific molecule called LPS slips into your bloodstream in tiny amounts every single day. LPS is short for lipopolysaccharide. It's a fragment from the outer membrane of certain bacteria, and your immune system is hardwired to treat it as an emergency. Because in evolutionary terms, LPS in the bloodstream usually meant a serious infection. Every time a little LPS leaks through, your immune system launches a low-grade inflammatory response. Not a big one, just enough to register, day after day, year after year. That is the fire. Cardiologists now have a name for that fire. They call it inflammaging. And it is, more and more, being recognized as the unifying mechanism behind a long list of senior health problems that used to be treated as separate, unrelated conditions. That same inflammaging is why your blood pressure has been creeping up. It's why your knees ache without an injury you can remember. It's why your thinking feels a half step slower than it did at 55. It's part of why your muscles are harder to maintain even when you're walking every day. It's part of why your skin is thinner and bruises more easily. One root cause, many downstream symptoms. The leaky gut wall is the input. The whole body wear is the output. A 2018 study in the journal Frontiers in Immunology specifically traced this LPS-driven low-grade inflammation as a measurable driver of frailty in adults over 65. The mechanism isn't speculative, it's just slow. And slow biological damage is exactly the kind that flies under the radar of any 15-minute annual physical. A separate 2020 paper in the Journals of Gerontology found that older adults with higher circulating LPS levels had measurably worse cognitive performance on standardized tests, even after controlling for age and education. The connection between your gut wall and your brain is no longer a theory. It's data. And now you know why your doctor hasn't told you. It's not malpractice, it's lag. The Akkermansia assay isn't standard. The intestinal stem cell renewal rate isn't measured on a basic metabolic panel. The LPS level in your blood isn't part of any routine test for someone without an active infection. By the time these markers filter down into primary care, another decade will have passed. But the lag is real, and you don't have to wait for it to catch up before you act on what we already know. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. My doctor told me my gut is fine. My last colonoscopy was clean. I hear that every single week in my office. Here's what those tests are actually looking for. A colonoscopy is looking for visible damage, polyps, inflammation severe enough to see with a camera, structural disease, tumors. It is not looking at the renewal rate of your intestinal stem cells. It is not measuring your Akkermansia population. It is not measuring how much LPS is leaking through your gut wall every day. By the time a colonoscopy can see what's wrong at the structural level, the upstream cellular problem has been running for a decade or more. A clean colonoscopy at 65 is not the same thing as a healthy gut at 65. The first is the absence of one specific category of disease. The second is the presence of resilience, two completely different categories. The first is good news. The second is something you actually have to build. So here is exactly what I want you to do, starting tonight. The protocol is 4 steps. It costs almost nothing, and I've watched it work in my own clinic over and over again. Step 1. Feed your Akkermansia. Add 1 to 2 cups daily of polyphenol-rich plants, wild blueberries, pomegranate seeds, red cabbage, dark leafy greens like spinach and arugula. Polyphenols are the food source Akkermansia preferentially uses. A 2019 study in the journal Gut showed that polyphenol-rich diets selectively expand Akkermansia populations in human subjects within 8 weeks. Start with a half cup of berries at breakfast and a cup of dark greens at one other meal. That's it for step 1. Step 2. Remove the 3 gut killers. The first is emulsifiers, carboxymethylcellulose and polysorbate 80. Read the label on your ice cream, your salad dressings, your almond milk, your protein bars. The second is artificial sweeteners, sucralose and aspartame, especially in diet sodas and sugar-free yogurts. The third is industrial seed oil heated to high temperatures, the fryer oils used in most fast food and many packaged snacks. All 3 categories independently thin the mucin layer in animal studies. A 2015 study in Nature found that emulsifiers alone were enough to push otherwise healthy mice into a low-grade inflammatory state in just 12 weeks. Removing these is just as important as adding the polyphenols in step 1. Step 3. Add 1 fermented food daily. Plain kefir, real refrigerated sauerkraut, kimchi, or unsweetened plain yogurt with live and active cultures listed on the label. The Mount Sinai team used a fermented dairy intervention as their Akkermansia restoring arm. 2 tablespoons is enough to start. You do not need to overhaul your diet. Just 1 serving every day of something genuinely fermented. The shelf-stable stuff in jars at room temperature is usually pasteurized and dead. Check the refrigerated section instead. Step 4. Time restrict your eating window to roughly 12 hours. Stop eating by 7 p.m. Start again at 7 a.m. The overnight fast lets the gut lining repair itself with no incoming workload. Published rodent data, summarized in a 2021 review in Cell Metabolism, shows that Akkermansia populations expand specifically during the fasted state. You don't need a complicated fasting regimen. Just close the kitchen at 7 in the evening and let your gut do the repair work it was designed to do overnight. Within 3 to 4 weeks, most of my patients tell me the same things in roughly the same order. The bloating goes first, usually within 10 to 14 days. Then their energy gets steadier through the afternoon, less of that 3 p.m. crash. And then, this is the one that surprises them. Their thinking feels sharper. Names come back faster. Conversations feel easier to follow. They stop searching for the right word in the middle of a sentence. That is the Inflammaging coming down. That is the fire being put out. This is something you can start tonight. You don't need a prescription. You don't need to wait for your doctor's office to start running microbiome panels. You don't need to spend money on expensive supplements or imported probiotics. You just need to walk to your fridge and your pantry and make 4 specific changes. Write "starting tonight" in the comments. I read every single one of them, and I want to know who's actually committing to this 4-step protocol for the next 30 days. Tell me your age. Tell me which step looks hardest. Tell me one symptom you'd most like to see change. That comment is your contract with yourself. And if this video helped you finally understand why your body has been aging the way it has, subscribe, because next week I'm covering the one common breakfast food that may be feeding the wrong bacteria in your gut and the simple swap that flips the whole picture. I'm Dr. Richard James. Take care of your gut tonight, and through it, you'll take care of everything else.